Let's eat some barbecue!
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video from us. In today's video, we are going to talk about an organization which has been instrumental in the survival of the human race on Earth in the Hellboy instrument. A secretive group formed to battle the Nazi Germany occult units during the peak of World War II, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense is an American government agency which, as its name suggests, deals with all kinds of supernatural phenomena in America and the rest of the world. Boasting powerfully gifted individuals like Hellboy, Liz Sherman, Abe Sapien and others as a part of its roster, they are more than prepared for any challenge that comes their way to protect humanity and ensure its survival. B.P.R.D. first appeared as an organization in Seed of Destruction #1 in March 1994. It would, later on, get its run as spin-off comics for Mike Mignola to expand the Hellboy universe with art by Ryan Sook in 2002's Hollow Earth #1. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origin of B.P.R.D, Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, and its Enhanced Talent Task Force. Towards the end of World War II, Nazi Germany, sensing inevitable defeat, was getting desperate to try and turn their fortunes around. In a last-ditch attempt, they turned towards the supernatural, creating several occult units whose objectives were to gain an alliance with supernatural powers to try and turn the tide of war. Once the Allies gathered this intel, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense was formed under the leadership of Professor Trevor Brutenholm in 1944. The B.P.R.D. serves as the major secret organization in the Hellboy universe, whose primary objectives are to deal with all the extraterrestrial and supernatural threats that plague the Earth. Thus, they employ field agents with gifted abilities, called the Enhanced Talent Task Force. The B.P.R.D. sees its first action in 1944 against a Nazi occult division where they are led by a young Trevor Brutenholm, thwart plans made by the Russian Grigory Rasputin, who, as you might have guessed, is inspired by the actual world Rasputin from early 20th century Russia. Mike Mignola has a lot of fun portraying this take on the legendary Russian, and his depiction of the Hellboy universe sees him ally with the Nazis and try to release the B.P.R.D. from their prisons to bring annihilation to the current world and spawn a new race of mortals from the ashes. B.P.R.D. are dragon-like creatures created by a rogue spirit upon the creation of Earth, who are all-powerful in their psychic abilities, relentless cruelty, and insatiable hunger for destruction and power. The spirits banished these creatures upon their creation and potential for chaos. Cthulhu heavily inspires them from Lovecraftian works. After successfully thwarting the Nazis, Trevor Brutenholm eventually becomes the director of the organization, and it is under his leadership the Bureau goes international. In the subsequent decades, the Bureau enjoyed the full support of the United Nations and all other countries around the world as it combats Nazi and Soviet occults, as well as other paranormal activities around the planet, to keep the world and its inhabitants safe and oblivious from the horrors that surround it. Hellboy, whom Trevor rescued in the first operation in 1944, is practically adopted by the Bureau, grows up calling it home, and eventually turns him into their best agent and asset, helping the Bureau win against major extinction-level threats. Other major characters who form the core of the B.P.R.D.'s Enhanced Talent Task Force are Abraham Sapien, an amphibious man with highly advanced empathetic skills and enhanced intelligence, along with superhuman strength and speed in water due to his amphibious nature. He was discovered by the Bureau in 1981 and initially experimented upon to learn his true nature, but he was befriended and rescued as an agent with enhanced talent by Hellboy. Next is Elizabeth Sherman, a Kansas City girl who can produce fire. Initially out of control, she was responsible for the death of her family and others due to accident caused by unrestrained and uncontrolled bursts of her power. Tracking her down, the B.P.R.D. recruits her, and Hellboy again befriends her and recruits her for the task force. The homunculus Roger is also part of the task force. He's an artificial life found in a medieval alchemist's ruined lab. The B.P.R.D. initially targets him due to his killing of one of their agents when first brought into life. but he is later absorbed into the task force due to his good nature and spirit and some support from Abraham Sapien and Hellboy. The task force also features Johann Kraus, a medium who lost his body during one of his seances and was struck in his ectoplasmic form. The B.P.R.D, recognizing his potential, created an exosuit for his ectoplasmic spirit to reside in and have a physical presence, while his mastery of spirits and ghosts would prove to be a valuable asset to the task force. The focus shifts to the B.P.R.D. The task force rescues Liz and Johann is introduced. Hellboy finally leaves the B.P.R.D. at the end of 2001, Conqueror Worm, because he discovers that the Bureau had placed a live bomb inside Roger the Homunculus, fearing Roger may lose control. However, this was kept a secret from the enhanced task force, and their rage at this betrayal was justified. Mike Mignola decided to expand the Hellboy universe by focusing on the B.P.R.D. and its other agents in the absence of Hellboy. The first was the Hollow Earth storyline, first published in January 2002. Mignola collaborated with Ryan Sook for the Earth work, and the result was incredible and gave us a gripping storyline whilst exploring the background of the Bureau and its core members. The first issue also introduces the leaders to Johann Kraus, a fan favorite of the series. The story opens with Liz Sherman leaving the Bureau to find a sect of reclusive monks in the Ural Mountains in search of more control over her innate fire abilities. Afterwards, Abe Sapien sees Liz tortured, and the B.P.R.D., who had been keeping tabs on her even after Liz left them due to her powerful abilities. With its help, they track her down to the Ural Mountains and find the monk's sanctum, but everyone inside is dead. They also see Liz's body, and she is technically alive, but she has had her soul sucked out of her body. Further investigations of the shrine reveal deep tunnels inside the earth. Against the advice of their field director, Kate Corrigan, the trio of Abe Sapien, Roger the Homunculus, and the newly recruited Johann Kraus. Inside the tunnels, the trio keeps fighting off more and more of the subterranean creatures. We get to see the powers and abilities of all three, as Abe's leadership skills in Hellboy's absence and Roger's capabilities of energy manipulation were also on display as he manipulated the energy of the spirit of one of the dead subterranean creatures to learn more about their lair as well as their leader, the King of Fear. Johann gets into action for the first time, displaying his impressive communication skills with spirits. Finally, they find Liz's soul trapped in a contraption and her rage being used to power a bunch of inactive machines, with the help of which the King of Fear wants to invade the world above the ground. After a fight, they manage to rescue Liz's soul and with the help of Johann bind it back to her comatose body, which they carry the whole time. They finally get rescued by the Bureau from Scotland, having traversed most of Europe from inside the Earth, confirming the existence of a hollow Earth. The appearance of the frogs. The Hollow Earth storyline was later included as part of the Plague of Frog cycle, but the first appearance of the frogs occurs in the issue Plague of Frogs No. 1 from 2004. Mike Mignola had written a series of standalone B.P.R.D. issues after the Hollow Earth cycle and decided to write the Plague of Frogs cycle, picking up on some story elements from his Seed of Destruction issues in 1994. One of those elements is frog-like enemies, who serve as the story's main antagonists. The issue opens at a New Jersey B.P.R.D. lab where a fungus is being researched. A visiting professor suddenly kills the other professor and sets the fungus free. Readers then discover that the fungus can resurrect dead or injured people as frog monsters. Liz, Abe, and Roger then dispatch the first group of frogs. Further investigation leads the task force to Crab Point, where they try to locate a new Temple of Mysteries. A crashed helicopter injures the task force, and Roger is taken out by a frog masquerading as a young girl. The Master of the Frogs, one of the 369 Ogdru-hem, who are the offsprings or creation of the Ogdru-jahad, makes an appearance here, and we learn that he is named Sadu-hem. He has turned all the devotees in the Temple of the New Mysteries into frogs. After After a brief fight, Sadhu Hem is killed by Liz, who burns it alive, while the leader of the cult mortally injures Abe before dying himself by suicide, satisfied that his work has caused the frog plague to spread throughout America. Abe, in his death, learns about his past life as a human. He learns about his past as a Victorian scientist, Langdon Everett Cole, who was part of the 1S cult and believed that all life originated from the sea. During one of their research into a mysterious spore from the sea, Cole absorbed it and transformed it into his current amphibious man form. The Oannes Society believed him to be Oannes reincarnated and hid him while hibernating over 2 centuries in a hidden laboratory under a Washington, D.C. hospital. This storyline sets up the frogs as a significant threat throughout the remainder of the cycle and establishes that their corruption has spread throughout America. Cathar Hem, an alliance of the frogs and the Black Flame. The Black Flame was a supervillain in the 1930s who was defeated by a superhero of that era, Lobster Johnson. However, in current times, when the storyline is set during the early 2000s, it is Landis Pope, a neo-Nazi and CEO of the Zinco Corporation, who manages to revive and claim the power and the persona of the Black Flame for himself. In this 6-part series, written by Mike and illustrated once again by Guy Davis, the B.R.P.D. faces an alliance between the frogs and the Black Flame and has to stop a near-invulnerable foe in Cathar Hem, one of the 369 Ogdru Hems. In his fanaticism for the occult and his neo-Nazi beliefs, Pope thinks he can ally with the frogs by training a few of them with the ultimate goal of being their master and unleashing the Cathar Hem to destroy the world. The B.R.P.D. during this time is fighting a war with the frogs all over America, with several of its task forces leading other assaults against strongholds of frogs to defeat them. One of these groups is led by Roger, who has had high success in these skirmishes. However, the Black Flame attacks Roger's group and manages to kill him. It is one of the most high-profile deaths from the task force and affects the other members badly. Roger's mentor and the leader of the task force, Ben Damio, an ex-military veteran with a dark secret of his own, decides to quit. At the same time, Johann Kraus refuses to believe that Roger is permanently gone and believes that he can be reincarnated since Roger is a homunculus. Abe also blames himself for Roger's death since he was not active on field duty at the time because he learned more about his past life. The Black Flame, now with a large frog following behind him, successfully resurrected Cathar Hem, a colossal monster capable of untold destruction. The comic book changes its focus on the terrible Ogdru Hem as frogs start defending it, while the Cathar Hem goes on a rampage. This monster can quickly destroy cities. Conventional military attacks can do it no damage. The American government at this point considers nuking the threat. The Black Flame also discovers that the frogs did not believe him as their master and were merely following him to ensure that Cathar Hem is summoned. Meanwhile, Liz gets visions from Meman Sa, a mysterious entity who tells her that the key to defending Cathar Hem lies in a mysterious cylindrical object found in Roger's room. Armed with the object, which amplifies her firepower, Liz obliterates the near-invulnerable Cathar Hem, showing her true terrible potential. In the final issue, number 6, the Black Flame is dragged down into the depths of the earth by the remaining frogs after Liz's inferno, while Roger's remains are dissected for research by the B.P.R.D. The Return of the Black Flame and the King of Fears. The last issue cycle of the Plague of Frogs cycle was the King of Fears, issue number 1 to 5, released between January to May 2010. This story by Mike, once again illustrated by Guy Davis, sees our task force heroes Abe and Liz, along with an operative Devon and a few other soldiers, head back to the same monastery, Agartha, in the Ural Mountains, where Liz had once disappeared years ago during the Hollow Earth storyline. Looking for answers, Liz and the others get separated. Abe and the soldiers are captured by the subterranean creatures with their leader, the King of Fears, who has struck an alliance with the Black Flame. Apparently, after being abducted by the frogmen at the end of the events of the Black Flame issues, Pope, or the Black Flame, has a much deeper understanding of the Ogdru Hem and the Ogdru Jehads and realizes that Abe is the future of the new mortal races on Earth, or a perfected frog. Black Flame also kills off the King of Fears after making false promises to him about helping him conquer the world by powering his dormant engines, which has long since been his objective. The revelation about Abe shocks Devon and the other soldiers, who start distrusting him. However, they are all rescued when Liz inadvertently releases all her powers to destroy the underground people upon being shown a vision of the future where the B.P.R.D. had perished. This massive release of power deep inside the earth caused major volcanic and seismic activities throughout the world, with the island of Borneo being severely damaged and the countries of Indonesia and Brunei being wiped off the map. The issue ends with the presence of an enormous creature, which is now spewing a gas that mutates people into monsters. The finale of the B.P.R.D's fight against the Ogdru Jahad and Ogdru Hems, the Hell on Earth cycle. The King of Fears issue number 5 ended the Plague of Frogs cycle of comics. The next cycle is the climax of the B.P.R.D. focused spin-off comics by Mike and culminates in a full-blown fight where we finally get to see one of the mythical Ogdru Jahads in its physical form in a battle against the B.P.R.D. After Abe and the others are rescued following Liz's outburst of power that killed the Black Flame, the world is now more chaotic. Monsters are coming out of the earth all over the world, and the B.P.R.D's resources are stretched thin to combat them, even though they have been promised unlimited funds for this war against the monsters. The Zinka Corporation resurrects a new Black Flame, which is much more powerful than the older, recently deceased one. This Black Flame starts to activate dormant Ogdru Hem all over the earth. Much of the storyline here projects the Black Flame as the main antagonist, as his newest resurrection has given him powers to rival that of Liz, and he is now truly controlling all the remaining frogs. Even though the Black Flame is defeated, he manages to unleash one of the Ogdru Jahad, Non-Jahad, who emerges in Kansas. Spreading unimaginable destruction and creating many Ogdru Hems, this is the biggest extinction-level threat ever faced by the B.P.R.D. It channels all its fighting resources to combat the dragon-like creature, but nothing can stop it. Non-Jahad was only killed when Johann sacrificed himself to channel the power of an artifact, which was the only thing powerful enough to kill the almost godlike creature.
Well, here I come.
B.P.R.D's other major appearances other than the comic storyline. In the original Hellboy 2004 and Hellboy 2 The Golden Army. B.P.R.D. is heavily featured in the first Hellboy movie, released in 2004. In the movies, President Roosevelt forms the Bureau in the movie to combat Nazi occults. The film shows how Professor Trevor Bruttenholm rescues Hellboy following a successful raid to stop Project Ragnarok by the Nazis, an attempt to release the Ogdru Jahad into the world. However, they managed to spawn Hellboy as a child, adopted by Professor Bruttenholm and raised by the Bureau. Other notable characters from the main comic book storyline are Director Manning, Elizabeth Sherman, and Abe Sapien, all representing the B.P.R.D. Throughout the movie, they all act as agents of the Bureau while stopping Rasputin from carrying out his evil plan of unleashing his masters into the world. During the film, the Bureau is a secret organization, unknown to the general public. In the sequel, the B.P.R.D's existence is made known to the public due to Hellboy's belligerence, much to the fury of Director Manning. Manning recruits Johann Kraus, an ectoplasmic entity in a suit, to take control of the task force and rein in Hellboy. Initially often at tenterhooks, the team eventually bonds well, with Kraus showing his leadership capability. Much of the action in the movie takes place in the B.P.R.D's headquarters, and by the end of the film, Hellboy, Liz Sherman, Abe, and Johann Kraus all leave the Bureau after events during the movie's climax to live out everyday life.
Nobody told me there was a dress code.
In the 2019 Hellboy reboot, B.P.R.D. which in this iteration is a public agency, is again at the center of things during the 2019 reboot of the Hellboy franchise. Though deviating from his comic book origin storyline, Hellboy is still an adopted son of B.P.R.D. director Trevor Bruttenholm in this movie. He is also sent on a mission by him on the Bureau's orders, which kickstarts events in the film. The Bureau and Bruttenholm are later abducted by the primary antagonist, the Blood Queen Vivian Nimue, lover of Merlin from King Arthur's time. At the time of the movie, Hellboy, still a B.P.R.D. operative, locates Abe Sapien dormant in a water tank, thereby bringing the fan favorite into the franchise. Ben Daimio plays a role in this movie after being omitted from the original movie series. Other appearances. The B.P.R.D. had a TV special named B.P.R.D. Declassified in 2004 and appeared in Hellboy sourcebook and role-playing game. Marvelous Verdict. The Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense lies at the heart of all Hellboy stories. It is the agency that adopted him, and having a gifted director like Trevor Bruttenholm meant that the organization always had its heart set in the right place, even though it had its fair share of missteps in managing its resources of extraordinarily talented individuals. In the Hellboy universe, the Earth would have been long doomed had the Bureau not existed and been overrun by monsters. The Bureau would often employ individuals it was designed to stop in the first place, to fight fire with fire. Its leniency in providing freedom and funding to dangerous individuals who have shown that they have a good heart and want to help the good side has helped it triumph against impossible odds many times. The lore behind the Bureau is profound, and its characters are interesting enough to be protagonists, as evidenced in the multi-year run of the B.P.R.D. focused miniseries by Mike Mignola, where Hellboy's presence was minimal. And with that, we come to the end of today's video on B.P.R.D. Thank you for watching our video, and if you liked this video, remember to hit the like button, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications.